Hello, everyone. I think we can start. It's 2 o'clock. We have a very big number of people registering. So I think many more people will join in the upcoming minutes. I will still start because we have a lot of content. I would like to make sure that in addition to the presentation of the case studies, we will have the opportunity also to open the discussion for all the participants. You will have the opportunity whether to raise your hand, posting questions in the chat, so you have different ways to interact with us. So I'm Filippo Del Nino. I am working. Okay, sorry, please mute your microphones. So I'm Filippo Del Nino. I'm working for the European Training Foundation. I work in the ETF Network for Excellence. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you to this conference, with this webinar, Excellence in Upskilling and Reskilling, Digital Pedagogies as the New Normal. This webinar has a double meaning. The first, of course, is to discuss about this topic and present 3 very interesting case studies. But the origin of this conference was to introduce the ETF Network for Excellence to the International Council for Distance. Sorry, I hear some. I'm just asking to mute the organizers to mute everybody, and to introduce the ICDE to all the ENE members. So as an introduction, I think it can be all. I think I would like to give the floor to Torvu for the presentation of ICDE. Torun, sorry.
Thank you very much, Filippo. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Torun Gjelsvik. I am the Secretary General of ICDE, International Council for Open and Distance Education, and I'm greeting you from Oslo in Norway. I'm very pleased to be with you this afternoon, and together with 2 of our members who are here today to present, Alan from Nordhoff in Norway and Robert from Learnship. So just a brief introduction to ICD for those of you who don't know us. We are the leading and global international membership association for distance open flexible education. I will ask the moderator to advance the slide, please, and I will give you a quick introduction. So we are an NGO, not-for-profit association that was established back in 1938, actually. So we're very old. And we have a global membership working for the same purpose. Since 1938, we have been working for access to education through technologies that were available. In 1938, that was postal letters. Now we have a very different time with lots of technologies, but the purpose is still the same. And we will achieve this potential of open, flexible, and distance learning through our members and learning communities, because we are a membership association. Next slide, please. So here you see some key points of the history of ICD. As I said, we're celebrating our 85th anniversary this year. We are older than UNESCO. But we have a consultative partnership with UNESCO since 1967, so it goes way back too. The reason why the Secretariat is based in Norway is because we are partly funded by the Norwegian Ministry of Education and Research since 1988, so we're very thankful for that. And thanks to that support, we are able to host this Secretariat with myself and 4 employees. We have more than 320 members and partners across all continents, working together for the Sustainable Development Agenda, in particular the Sustainable Development Goal number 7, quality education for all. And here you see some of the strategic priorities. We're working a lot with advocacy, so to advocate globally. Now, not the least, during and after COVID, this has been very important. And to really try to enable and empower members to have a local impact through this global network. And it's also a goal for us to extend our global reach to underrepresented regions and to reach new stakeholders and also disadvantaged learner populations. And the subject areas that we're particularly working in is quality, so quality assurance, quality enhancement, of online distance flexible education. It's a core priority, together with OER, open education resources, open education practices, and innovation in education through new technologies and methodologies. Next, please. And here you see some keywords of members, partners, some statistics. Most of our members are institutional members. So it means they are, most of them, educational providers in tertiary education. So basically TVET, higher education towards adult learners, but we also have members who are offering K-12 education. And we have individual members, mainly being academic experts across the globe, and also a student membership, which is free of charge for all masters and PhD students who are interested in our field. And these members are placed in over 70 countries in all the world regions, together impacting more than 15 million students across all the continents. Next, please. So I just wanted to mention this as we are in a joint webinar with ETF, that we really see the value of joining a global community in these times. It's more important than ever. We need the global diversity and knowledge sharing to broaden our perspectives. And our members say that a very significant value for them of the ICD membership is these personal connections that they get within the organization, that they can collaborate with other members across borders, across sectors, and be stronger, have a stronger impact, because we're joining forces together through this membership association. And everyone learn more by sharing practices and collaborating with each other. Next, please. Here you see some of the partners that ICD has, because even though we are a membership association, we also have many partners. Many of them are regional association working in our field. And we're very happy that ETF also is a recent partner, which is why we're doing this first activity together this afternoon. Next, please. And here are some of the activities that our members engage in, just to give you a little more concrete on how members can benefit from this membership and working together. It can be projects, external projects. It can be initiatives that ICD initiates or some members initiate. We have a doctoral consortium for PhD students supported by our members, where we're doing activities, most of them virtual, for PhD students across the globe. And we have many events, both virtuals, but also face-to-face bigger events. And we have an open scholarly, open access journal named Open Praxis that we're very proud of. Next, please. So just before closing, here you see, I can share my slides. Here are some links to the ICDE website and the social media. We have a newsletter you can subscribe to for free, and also the link to Open Praxis that I just mentioned. And next, please. Very important announcement. Want to make sure that you all get this. The next upcoming ICD World Conference takes place in Costa Rica, in San Jose in November. And the registrations are open, and also call for proposals. Our events are open to anyone. You don't have to be a member of ICD to attend. And this is one of the biggest meeting places in this field. So we get experts, speakers, participants from all across the globe to convene together in Costa Rica in November. And I hope to see many of you there. And that's me. So last slide is just the contact details. So feel free to contact me or the secretariat if you have any questions. And there's also the links to the website and to this European project Encore Plus about OER that we are coordinating currently. I hope I didn't take too much time. Thank you very much, Filippo. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Torun. It was perfect. I love Costa Rica, so I'll have to try to convince my management to play for the mission. I'm not sure, but at least I can attempt. I have just a few slides about the ETF Network for Excellence. So I ask Erika kindly to put them on screen. The slides are very rich, but I will not go through all of them, don't worry. So the ETF Network for Excellence is an international network of centers of excellence coming from all around the world. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so these are the numbers. So most central of excellence are coming from what are our partner country, which is Northern Africa, Western Balkans, and Eastern Europe, and from European countries. But we also have a bigger and bigger component of countries coming from Africa. We have 31 out of 284, and a few central of excellence coming from other countries. Next slide. Okay, so there were two reflections in Europe, one organized by the European Commission, which led to the mapping of central vocational excellence, which is a publication. You find the link, the presentation. You will receive the presentation following the event, where they basically investigated what were all the characteristics of a center of excellence. And then, next slide, we had in parallel in the ETF a reflection on what it is a center of vocational excellence, what are the characteristics, what are the topologies, how do they work in the context of different educational systems. Again, we published a publication on which you find the link into the at the end of the slide. Next slide. It does happen, I'm sorry. And these are the thematic areas in which we are active. So we are active in greening, autonomy, public-private partnership, digital education, which is the sub-initiative in the context of which we have organized this event, smart specialization, entrepreneurial covers, and something I care a lot is sharing innovation and social inclusion in that excellence. We also have a self-assessment tool that we invite all our members to use to have a self-evaluation of their own center of excellence, in which areas they are more advanced, which areas they're still making progress. The results are published every 2 years in any publication. And for the center of excellence who want to join ENE, they are kindly invited to make use of this self-assessment tool. Now, in parallel, together with the European Commission, we are developing an even more advanced self-assessment tool, which will be at disposal of all ENE members as of 2024. To participate in ENE, it's sufficient to send an email to our functional email inbox, which is ene@etf.europa.eu. My colleague Loretta will for sure put the address in the chat. Joining is free. You might participate to all the activities of all these areas, which are open to all the center of excellence, while some other specific activities are managed within a smaller groups of center of excellence, which are identified, selected, and these are more intensive partnerships that we create to discuss and work on the specific thematic areas. I stop here. As I said, we received the presentation following the event, and I pass the floor for the real action of the webinar to my colleague Fabio, who will facilitate the presentation of the case studies.
Yes, thank you very much, Filippo. It is an incredible pleasure to attend this webinar, actually, because as Torun and you know, I'm a big fan of let's say collaborative networking, and I think when I see two institutions like ICD and ETF which share the same mission partially, that is the one of raising awareness and fostering discussions, I think why don't we just do things together in the intersections? And it's great to see this happening, actually. And the idea of starting with the presentation about ICD and then a presentation about the excellence part of the ETF is also to encourage members of ICD to look at what the ETF is doing, and members of ENE to think about ICD, about joining ICD, maybe as members, maybe joining some activities that ICD is running. Actually, I think, I mean, it would be a pity not to take this chance. And actually, thank you, Torun, for having accepted the invitation and for organizing, and thank you to all the participants. And actually, this is paying off. We have more than 100 participants at the very moment, and I see from the many hello and presentations in the chat that the crowd is listening. So this is great. So we'll stop talking, just sharing after I will share my happiness, and I will move into the, let's say, I would say most interesting, forgive me for the previous speakers, part of the webinar, where we're going to hear about cases where digital education is becoming the norm in a meaningful way, I would say. We are talking about transitions, but the transition can be never-ending, but must reach at a certain point some checkpoints where we say, okay, this is where we are, this is what we have done. And if we talk about digital education, these points are important to be shared with others, and that's the idea of this session. So the first presentation comes from Germany, from the Vice President of Learning Sciences at the Leadership Network, Robert Sabo. Robert, you are there. I'm sure I mispronounced your surname, so I beg pardon in advance. I know how it feels because of my surname. So leave you the floor. Feel free also to introduce yourself and your organization.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fabio. That's Sabo. It's a Hungarian, pretty common Hungarian name. I grew up in South Africa, so I mispronounced it till I was about 25 years old. Probably still doing so. I'm sharing my LinkedIn details in the chat if anybody would like to follow there. We have 15 minutes now. I'll try and be efficient, try and use maybe 10 minutes to give the main part, and then perhaps 5 minutes if there are any questions. I think that's the third and final slide we're looking at. Could we maybe navigate backwards and, yeah, is that the first one? No, it is, yeah. Thank you. So we'll start there, please. Yeah, that's a good one. Learnship Networks GmbH is a business-to-business training company based in Cologne in Germany. The two founders of the company used to work for RTL Online, which was part of the Bertelsmann Group, and initial investment in the company came from the Bertelsmann Digital Investments Fund. Bertelsmann was one of the first clients of the company. And so my name is Rob Sabo. I have a master's degree in education and a specialization in applied linguistics. I've been with Learnship since 2015. And when I joined in 2015, we were already up and running with Bertelsmann. So if you don't know about them, they're a global media services and education company. They operate in 50 companies around the world, 126,000 employees, 18 billion revenue in 2019. So this is a big company. And we basically took on the challenge of providing all of their foreign language training globally, not just within Germany or within Europe, but everywhere, through collaboration with what they call the Bertelsmann University, which is how they deliver their learning and development strategy, essentially. If we could go to the next slide, please. So what Learnship was basically doing was providing an alternative to the business English training that happens on site all across Europe, where trainers will go to the company's premises. They work for normally chain language schools, and HR managers have to deal with multiple schools in different locations. What Bertelsmann wanted to do was to have a single service provider, one source of truth, and that was the challenge. So essentially, Bertelsmann wanted to centralize their language training, to develop a multilingual online learning platform for employees. This is the Bertelsmann University, but powered by Learnship. The planning, implementation, and coordination of job-related face-to-face online and offline training, initially online and offline, for the national and international workforce with multilingual customer service. Central grading of language proficiency, standardized needs assessment, central reporting. So one centralized source of truth, one provider, right? And we were able to do this. So it took us some time. We started out with a mix of online courses and traditional courses. And we're happy to say now that we're actually at the stage where we can say 100% of Bertelsmann University's training is happening online. So this was a very successful implementation of digital education. It was in line with the digital transformation policies set by the company. And I can say in Germany, these digital transformation agendas were certainly in place before the COVID pandemic, but they've certainly received a shot in the arm. So they've definitely accelerated. So basically, we provide foreign language training for all of their locations. There's one platform. Each cohort will have a program manager. On the company side and on our side, there's a key account manager with full customer support, all offered digitally. We provide the content, we provide the trainer, we provide the curriculum, we provide the reporting, which is then used for quarterly and half-year and annual business reviews, at which we discuss the impact, the training. Our courses have linguistic can-do descriptors, but those are always linked to business imperatives. For example, if they need remote teams to collaborate better together, and so on. So the line managers are also surveyed as to the progress of the employees. So it's not only the academic or linguistic performance, but also the transfer to the point of work, which is important. So we have at LearnShip a range of different programs, from the fully self-paced, digital, which is the software as a service model, where you log in and you have access for a certain amount of time, depending on the license, and access to a certain amount of content, depending on the type of license, to blended programs, which link pedagogically the digital preparation with the live training sessions, to fully trainer-led programs. So we have the full spectrum in place. One of the things that's most important for corporate training managers is obviously the quality of the reporting, the ability to look at cohort progress, look at individual progress, and then obviously look at feedback regularly. And to do that, we have Power BI tools offering 24/7 overviews of every program that we run, which is quite easy for them to pull up the results and then hold those against the business objectives that they have. So we manage around 1,500 freelance trainers. We have locations now in Cologne, in Chicago, we're in Mexico City, Shanghai, Sao Paulo, see if I'm forgetting anything, Paris, of course, as well as Berlin and Munich in Germany. So and Tokyo, I didn't mention Tokyo. So we're now truly global. And the solution that we provided for Bertelsmann is something that we've rolled out for other companies around the world. And the last time I looked at a study of business-to-business foreign language training, that was pre-pandemic, admittedly, but it said something like 70% of that kind of training is still happening traditionally on site. As you can see with this Bertelsmann case study, it is possible to take the training of a complex multinational fully online. And we continue to make inroads across the board in different industry sectors with our partners. As I say, what happened after the pandemic was interesting because all of a sudden, in March 2020, HR managers were freezing all training that was happening across the board. And in some cases, it was only actually sort of switched on again in the autumn of the year. And so there was a major lag and a major loss of training, and they don't want that to happen again. So to safeguard against that in the future, there's been a real shift towards digital programs, and we're seeing more and more people wanting to emulate the Bertelsmann story, essentially. So just to wrap up, so before the collaboration with LearnShip, Bertelsmann mostly worked with on-site local providers in order to offer its employees courses in different locations. But the coordination of the numerous providers was expensive administratively. The budget was dislocated and quality assurance was difficult to manage. So this is administratively better. Regarding quality, it's easier to track. And based on the expertise of LearnShip and the success of the online training programs, as I say, I'll just repeat this statistic. They've gone from 20% to 100% online learning over the last 10 years. So if we could bring up the last slide, please. And we'll just look at a couple of numbers. So 4,500 participants, from 23% to 100%, and then 4.76 out of 5 for learner satisfaction. So we regularly survey, and that's the advantage of having centralized training. Everybody's surveyed in the same way with the same form. It happens at the beginning of the training, in the middle of the training, and at the end of the training. And it happens in time so that the feedback that's received once it's filtered, because that feedback could be on the content, could be on the trainer, could be on course administration, could be on the stability of the platform, etc., has time to be filtered and directed to the relevant department to be acted on in a timely fashion. You know, whether that is sometimes something as practical as placing somebody in a different class when they've been re-leveled or leveled incorrectly, all the way to whether somebody's specific focus hasn't been addressed in the way that they feel it should be, complaints about content, or whatever sorts of feedback that any language training organization will deal with is done digitally and in a way that makes us relatively agile and able to respond quickly. We also capture all of those requests and keep them. Firstly, we investigate them through our team of product managers, and then those will be filtered. Some will be turned into backlog items and then added to the product development roadmap, which is reviewed regularly with the senior leadership team. So this is one example of what LearnShip does, and I think it's a nice example of how digital pedagogy has gone from, I think, something relatively peripheral to being the core way that a company solves its training problems. So I've actually gone quicker than I had planned, so it actually leaves us a little time for question and answers, if anybody has any. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Robert. Actually, it's fantastic to see such a breadth, and I think it's you know, I would have a few questions, but let me first prioritize the crowd. If you have questions, please use the chat. I was very much impressed by the data in your last slide, from 1/4 to 100% of online language training. No, in this case, if I understood well, it is something, by the way, that especially when it comes to English, online English courses is a necessity of a number of countries that the ETF is working with. So we might be in touch also to experiment a bit on this. We have a question in real time by Tanya. She's asking, are you looking for any employees, please? Very impressed with your work and I'd like to work for you. Tanya from Malta. So we have also some job placement in live. And Christian is asking if you work with hybrid or only purely online course, or do you also do some hybrid?
No, we don't want to do hybrid. I think the extra logistics is just unattractive. And you know, we used to do a certain percentage before the pandemic, and we pretty much stopped at that stage. So everything's online now. There are cases where we have a local partner, though. That's important. So if there's a certain tender that we apply to for corporate training and they want a certain percentage to happen traditionally on site, then we'll work with local partners to do that aspect of the training. But it's not something that we find is core to our identity and not something that we're particularly interested in focusing on.
Okay. Thank you. I guess more questions will come, and we have actually a debate at the end, so we'll have time to touch about different things. Thank you again. And let's move now to the second presentation. We are moved to Norway. We have Erlend Koppen Skar, Director of Noroff Accelerate at the Noroff School of Technology and Digital Media. So the floor is yours, dear Erlend.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. Like you said, my name is Alan. I'm the director of Noroff Accelerate, one of the 3 schools within Noroff School of Technology and Digital Media. As the name might reveal, we mainly teach technology courses and media courses. But besides that, I think I see a lot of similarities with what we do and what the previous speaker presented. So today I'll say a few words about us and place it in a context, and then present 2 cases, one upskill onboarding case and also one reskill case that we've done recently. And then I will also try to share some key takeaways from that work and what we think will be important moving forward in order to succeed with online training. I'm also tempting fate and sharing my own presentation today. It should be fine. And this looks promising.
Perfect.
So, Noroff, who are we? We are a school that trains people in technology. And we basically try to provide the skills of tomorrow, but do today, which sometimes is a hard exercise, but it's always a fun exercise. And basically what we are providing to our customers, the students, that is employability. We want to teach skills that are in demand in industry, and we want to teach skills that provide employability and gives them jobs. We do that through 3 different schools. We have a university college that deliver traditional degree-giving education. We also have a vocational school that is still higher accredited education, but focusing on skills, and a different pedagogy where it's a lot more learning by doing and more applied science in the teaching. And then we saw a couple of years back that we needed more because the world is changing, the pace is increasing, and we needed a vehicle to deliver skills faster, more to the point, and over a shorter time span. And that's when we created Noroff Accelerate. We are different from the 2 other schools in that we're not accredited, and we also focus on businesses as a key customer group for us. And today I'm going to focus on Noroff Accelerate, since that is my part of Noroff, and also since that is where we have the 2 cases I am going to present today. That being said, we still share more than we have differences within the 3 schools. We all experience the same, I almost want to call it disruption of education that happened, started before COVID, but was escalated and sped up by COVID and the global pandemic. And we, of course, are part of the digital transformation, all of us. And we see that that affects not only what we teach, but also how we teach moving forward. And we've seen a journey that seems familiar from the previous presenter, that we have had growth in student numbers. We went from 830 students in 2015 to over 4,000 in 2022. But we've seen that the growth comes online, and our largest campus is now the online campus, where we have 80% of our students. And we see the same within Noroff Accelerate, where we have candidates and customers, but it went from being purely classroom-based to now being primarily an online offering, delivering education and skills remotely. The first case I wanted to talk about is a collaboration we have with the Manpower Group and Experis. We decided together in 2019 to establish Experis Academy. The reason we did that was that we saw a huge demand for skills in the IT industry. The industry in Norway at that time was screaming for competent developers. But they were also at the same time a bit hesitant to employ graduates because of the cost of onboarding. It basically took too long to teach all the skills you need to become a productive developer as a new employee. So we set out with a goal to create a boot camp of 12 weeks that would, through accelerated learning and a really fast-paced and intensive program, create a developer equivalent to one with 1 year's experience, and thus shortening the onboarding period. And we actually succeeded in that. So in addition to teaching them a lot of technology and digital skills, we also taught them soft skills and how to collaborate and how to actually be a developer. And the concept was established in Oslo in a classroom, and then we grew it organically, step by step, but still focusing on that classroom human interaction delivery. And we expanded to other cities in Norway and then gradually to Sweden. But of course, growing was a pain, and scaling it was difficult because we always had that physical limitation of needing a full class in a city, and Experis needed to be able to attract enough candidates at one specific geographic location. Then COVID came and forced us into something that we had talked about for a while. We wanted to replicate the online delivery model of the vocational school and the university college into this context. But met a bit of resistance from our customer. They weren't quite ready to make the leap. But with COVID, we had to. And that's when the growth really escalated. Because we saw that with the knowledge from the vocational school and the university college, we could deliver quality training over distance. We still kept it focused around an instructor and delivered remote instructor-led training. But we did so without experiencing any drops in quality. And the customers that received the candidates afterwards were just as pleased as they were before the pandemic, before we moved online. And with that confidence, we started scaling the concept. And post-COVID, we haven't gone back to the classroom because we see this is the way moving forward. And we also see it in terms of being a business model, that this is more flexible and better for Experis as well, that they can spread the risk of hiring people to different locations. So we went from delivering in Norway and a little bit in Sweden to also include Denmark, Finland, and covering all of the Nordics, and have recently included the Netherlands, Greece, and Germany in the portfolio. So moving online has really allowed us to scale and grow this concept together with Experis. We'd also like to mention one more thing that for me is a unique quality with education, that it is so open for collaboration and partnerships and for sharing and working together with others. And I think for us, a key to the success of this partnership is the partnership we have with Experis and the Manpower Group that brings together two worlds, but do to create skills and education to candidates and to humans, and that has been really successful. The next case I wanted to show was a reskill case that we did for Scania. They build trucks in Sweden. And of course, they see the same thing as everyone else in the world, that a lot of the processes and pipelines they used to have, they are being automated. The robots come in and take over, and you don't need humans to perform all the jobs you used to employ humans to do. At the same time, they also need developers, and are struggling to find them just as anyone else. They figured that instead of firing people in one end of the facility and struggling to find them in another end of the facility, why can't we take the employees we already have and give them new skills and expand their toolbox, and then get employees that know the culture, they know the company, and they know how to work. They just need to learn how to do a new job. And we developed a program based on the Experis Academy bootcamp, where we, over a course of 12 weeks, took them from having lots of different positions within Scania to becoming junior front-end developers. That was during COVID, so we did all of it online. And much to our joy, we found that all 12 candidates in the program were placed in development departments across Scania, and are still doing a great job there. So we are this fall starting our third round with Scania, and hope for many more. And it needs to make sense for us, and it needs to make sense for the customer. And for Scania, they say it themselves, they are not longer about nuts and bolts and building trucks. They are about delivering a mobility concept. And of course, that increases the need for a new skill set quite dramatically. And being able to deliver this online, remotely, with the flexibility that creates, it's a great opportunity to be a part of that journey for Oslo for other companies. And I promised some key takeaways. For us, realizing how digital transformation changes education has been key, and it has been important. Because the obvious thing is it changes what we teach. We are present in the tech domain, and the development happening within technology is definitely affecting what we teach. But I think just as importantly, it is affecting how we teach. The possibilities for online remote training today are vastly improved from what it was only 5 years ago. There's so much technology, so much bandwidth, and so many opportunities to connect and collaborate across a distance that just simply weren't there 5 years ago. And for us, it boils down to we need to be relevant with what we teach. We need to create that employability. We need to keep that as our main goal. But we also need to deliver a student experience that is in line with what the students are expecting in 2023. We're starting to get the Generation Z students in, and they are used to a high quality digital environment. They aren't used to the digital world that people like me grew up in. They have a vastly different expectation, and we need to make sure that education keeps up with that, and that we are able to compete for attention and deliver engaging content. So I think it's interesting to hear that Bertelsmann has a media background. We also have several people in our organization with a media background, and I think that battle for attention and battle for customer experience and customer satisfaction is important going forward if you want to deliver online digital training. And then we haven't taken it quite as far as the previous speaker, where we said everything is online moving forward. We have said that we will let the customer decide for a bit. But what we have said and seen the need for is to have really clearly defined products. And when we make a product, we make it for the online first delivery. And we actually take it one step further. And everything we make so that it's possible to do as self-paced on-demand training. And then from that starting point, if the customer wants it, we add on additional learning elements in the shape of humans. We have a self-paced plus concept where we add tutor support and almost like a success manager or a customer service on top of the training. And then we have our premium offering that you could buy if you buy a full class, where you also get the instructor. But the instructor isn't necessary. It just adds a different dimension to the training. Even if you do the self-paced version, you still meet the same learning outcomes and you still follow the same curriculum. You just need to do it by watching a video instead of watching an instructor. So that has been important for us moving forward. Of course, we've also seen that the dependency on pre-produced content has increased enormously. The customers expect it and demand it. They want the flexibility of being able to consume education when they want and where they want. And we also need, from our end, to have the flexibility to scale and package a delivery according to customer needs. So we have spent quite a bit of time and energy on creating a good structure for our content, and doing that to create a flexibility and delivery, and also scalability and reuse possibilities for the actual educational offerings. And that has been important for us in order to succeed delivering high quality education online. And last bit is trying to look at the next step and what do we see moving forward. And one of the takeaways is that humans still need humans. Very few of us are able to succeed alone when it comes to learning new skills and doing training. And we saw early on in the feedback that even if we moved online, the people who succeeded the most were the ones that had a group. They belonged to a learning environment larger than themselves. And for us, it's been a challenge to try to replicate that learning environment, that interaction with others, that ability to discuss and problem solve together, and to share victories and defeats, and have that community when you learn something new. And also they appreciate the human feedback. And how do you scale that? How do you make that available on demand? So currently we have implemented a solution called Synthesia, which is basically an AI generated avatar into our training. It allows us to use a lot more live video in our training, and also gives the customers and the candidates the perception of having human interaction when they train. And we find that the engagement scores are a lot higher than just watching a slideshow or reading text. Actually having a human-like digital assistant presenting concepts and explaining new technologies to you live and on demand. And being AI generated, it is also really easy to maintain and update and keep current and relevant. In addition to that, we're always looking at new ways to experiment with that community and be together feeling. So this fall, we are launching the first bootcamp where we try to implement metaverse campus for all the participants. We've created 2 buildings in the metaverse, one for being social and one for doing work and going to lectures. And of course, as anything else that is new, we don't know if it will succeed or not, but we think it is important to be curious and to keep challenging those digital frontiers and be inquisitive and see if it works. Some of it looks really good. Some of it we are really excited to see fall into place. But we do think that humans are important also in the future, and that the majority of learners need others in order to really succeed. So that was my prepared presentation. I have no idea how long I've been talking for, but hopefully there's time for a few questions.
Of course, don't worry. You were like 2 minutes above, but it was super interesting. And actually, I think you are testifying another example of, I would say, transition to normality. Actually, the way you talk about these things is like you're normal, but for many of the organizations we normally work in, not only in the ETF partner countries around Europe, but also in Europe, this looks a bit one step in front of them. So it's great to hear.
Yeah, for us, that was really interesting to see after the pandemic. Does the customers want to move back? And the answer was no. We want to keep exploring online remote teaching because it also creates benefits for them, and it makes it better and more flexible. So that was an interesting realization.
Thank you. You nailed exactly the point that we wanted to touch upon with this webinar. There are a few questions, a few detailed questions. Maybe you can answer in the chat, but I will just pick one by Josefa. And is please say one thing that you do in the design, and she's saying just one thing in capital letter that made the biggest change for your instructional designers. What is the thing that really changed the way they work?
I think it was a process that we call blueprinting, where we that came in connection with the online first production of content. We created a new step in our content creation process where we, after we had the innovation phase, where we sort of scoped out the idea, this is the educational offering, this is what we want to achieve, these are the major learning outcomes. We created a step where the subject matter expert, together with a scaffolding expert from our LX department, creates a blueprint for the training. And the reason that blueprint is important is because it breaks down all the learning outcomes into activities. And this is what you have to do in order to transfer this piece of knowledge. This is what you have to do in order to verify this with some sort of assessment. But then it also adds on the building blocks, where you say, if you want to achieve this in a classroom, you use these learning elements. You use the lecture, you use the whiteboard, you use a pre-produced presentation. If you want to achieve the same goals as a pre-produced learning offering, you achieve this by creating this video and this PowerPoint presentation and this piece of text in the LMS. So it ensures that we are true to the same learning outcomes, regardless of delivery model. It's still the same product. It's still the same skills being transferred, and it's put in a structure where it simplifies the production and ensures the quality of it.
Very interesting. Actually, this is the third concept, this blueprinting, very, very simple, but very much to the point that I hear that I noted down from your presentation. So congratulations also for the creative use of these concepts. Okay, we'll have time for more chatting later on. Now we have the third presentation. We stay in the Nordic countries. We stay we go to Finland now with the well-known Omnia school, vocational school, and you will let us know, Mervi, a bit more about which side of Omnia you will be talking about. But again, please feel free to illustrate how you are tackling this permanent transition towards the present future, it seems, by listening to the other presentation. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining from. So my name is Mervi Jansson. I'm the CEO of Omnia Education Partnerships, and we are a part of the Omnia Group. Now, what is Omnia Group? Omnia is one of the largest vocational education and training providers in Finland. And we, as the global consultancy and training arm, do the outreach. So we have done, let's say, digitally enhanced projects in a number of countries, such as Palestine, such as Georgia, such as Ukraine. So in very different operational environments. But I will shed some light on what digitalization in Finnish vocational education and training means. And I'll start by actually stepping a step back, looking at how this all came together, because Finland is one of the leading, let's say, digital education and training providers in the world. If we look at what has boosted Finnish vocational education and training digitalization, looking at the history, actually, as of 2007, so more than a couple of years ago, the Finnish National Agency for Education actually announced grants for learning environments, including digitalizing vocational learning. As of 2012, there was an emphasis on digital competences in all of our vocational qualifications. And then as of 2011, there was basically professional development available for vet teachers. And actually, Omnia was one of the first providers and partners to the Finnish National Agency, offering these support courses and capacity building for vocational teachers so that they could embrace digitalization as a part of vocational education and training. And I still remember I was actually doing some teacher training as a part of this, and all of a sudden in the room where we were with a bunch of people, one of the teachers said, "Oh my gosh, it's writing by itself." And we were actually training on Google tools, and she didn't realize that, you know, it was a shared Google document and anybody whom it was shared with could actually write. So, I mean, that was way back when, but that's pretty much how it all started. So basically for Finnish vet providers, what has happened is that they've had a lot of support and a lot of, let's say, good practice and what to benchmark from, whether it was support services, device policy, the digital strategy for the vet school, basically how to arrange all of this as a learning environment management and professional development for staff and teachers, also cloud-based services, because in Finland, pretty much all the reporting to our ministry and the national agency is done through different cloud-based services. So it has been a norm, not a new norm, but a norm for quite a while. Next slide, please. If we look at the competence areas, of course, it's always two sides to the coin. So we're talking about pedagogy, but we're also talking about administration. And with schools the size of Omnia, Omnia itself has 40,000 students in Finland, and basically 10,000 students annually are studying for vocational qualifications. Now, in addition, actually, as a part of the whole, like I said, we've had a number of international projects. So this year alone, we've had 20,000 Ukrainian students taking what we call let's say self-directed, self-paced learning. So basically, we've offered courses together with the Ukrainian Ministry of Education towards teacher training, vet school manager training, and then upskilling and reskilling professions. So anything from cybersecurity to setting up your own business to emergency first aid. We've had 20,000 Ukrainian students enroll online and then complete certification. And I think that's a powerful tool to showcase that even in the most difficult times and limited learning possibilities, actually digital does not divide. It actually helps to deliver powerful vocational education and training to whom and to where it is needed. So apart from the data management and security, we're very much looking at engagement, creation and curation of engaging materials and resources, and the teaching and mentoring online. And of course, when we go a couple of steps forward, it is very much about the innovation. And as a part of the innovation, we're looking at new types of competence-based assessment that the digital, let's say, innovative side of educational technology is now providing us. Next slide, please. So if we look at pre-COVID and now past COVID, if we can say that we are, well, pretty much past the pandemic anyway, from 2011 to 2020, in Finland, it was very much about communities of practice and national dissemination events. So basically, anybody who wanted to get a grant from the Finnish National Agency had to have at least 3 or minimum 4 partners, including other vet schools and also industry partners. So the public-private partnerships was pretty much there as well. And whatever was developed, whatever was piloted, needed to be nationally disseminated. We have typically 1 to 2 events annually where everything is published and showcased. So it's all very out in the open, and you can tap into any of the networks doing particular development work. And the Finnish National Agency has a website where they list all the ongoing projects. So it's very easy to showcase what all is happening in Finland in a given point in time in terms of developing digitally the whole education as a whole, or then vocational education and training. In 2018-19, a lot of the vocational qualifications were updated so that they included modules on robotics and even 3D printing. And I remember having this conversation with some teachers that there are qualifications where this will not have an impact. I would not say that that's the truth anymore. Even for somebody studying, let's say, a qualification in restaurant and, for instance, culinary arts, we have 3D printing of chocolate, for instance. So we can really say that it touches everything and it touches all vocational qualifications. Then came COVID-19, and of course, that meant distance teaching, distance guidance, distance assessment, closing of vet campuses, going from blended learning models to, let's say, pretty much 99% online learning. And that's when vet teachers had to get really creative. And also that meant that all of the vocational education and training providers pretty much had to look at their online learning environments with a critical eye to see how can we support learning during these hard times. Now, since then, everybody has upgraded their strategies, and now again, we have a new wave of change. So we're looking at artificial intelligence, we're looking at XR, so AR and virtual realities, and also the possibilities that metaverse brings us. Next slide, please. Looking at, or let's say, being critical in terms of what are the core digital skills. In Finland, we have national level vocational qualifications, and since all of them have been updated during the past 5 years, they all share a common denominator, which is digital skills. And what it means in terms of competence requirements is that there are elements of information literacy, communication and cooperation, media literacy, digital content creation, security skills, knowledge of copyright issues, problem solving, and critical thinking in terms of using digital tools. So basically, digital competence in all of our qualifications means that you have enough knowledge, you have skills, you have competence, and you understand ethical principles in using digital technology. And this means that there can be no vocational student in Finland who does not have this competence, because we foresee that working life today, not even talking about tomorrow, pretty much demands that this is the minimum that you need to have in order to be successful in any job. Next slide, please. Especially during COVID-19, we saw that digital learning needed to be more than, let's say, PowerPoint and text-based courses in the LMS. So engaging digital learning environments and tools were brought on to enhance what used to be, well, I dare say, somewhat boring online learning. And let's say the emerging of the new opportunities has really provided for engaging students, and that is the expectation as well. Next, please. So today we're doing research and, let's say, leading edge piloting in virtual reality and metaverse. And there's a project called the VTC, which is financed by Business Finland, where we, together with industry and universities, are doing research on virtual reality in vocational education and training. And exactly how do you transfer skills, and what does competence mean, and how can you assess true competence? So knowledge and skills applied in diverse and changing situations, where again, in the metaverse environments, you have more than you yourself and the teacher maybe to deal with. So we're really looking at, let's say, the 2.0 version of online learning. And that's what our students find extremely engaging. And of course, we can do so much more with the industry when we can plan simulations together. We can have virtual reality environments, basically from anything from like a shipyard to cranes to forklift trucks to let's say elderly care, and even, of course, simulations from different healthcare sectors. So really, we are pushing the boundaries today, and I'm really proud to say that Finnish vocational education and training providers, including Omnia, have embraced this, and teachers have flocked to our courses on how to use VR as a part of vocational education and training. Now, I will definitely agree with the previous speakers that this is not the sole solution. So basically, we need to think of learning environments critically and understand what role the different environments play in learning paths. And we also need to understand that learners are different and will require different types of support in different learning environments. And I think that's maybe the biggest challenge pedagogically that we have today, to understand that the individual learning paths must be different, not just need to be, but must be different. And we need to understand how each learner can be best supported to fulfill the competence requirements. Next slide, please. So we look at digitalization as a part of our blueprint of excellence for vocational education and training. So we used to have these horizontals. If you had great infrastructure, you had trained teachers, you had diverse pedagogical landscape, including, let's say, real world learning in industry, you had the systems and processes to document things and collaboration with your stakeholders. That used to be fine and enough for excellence, but today it is not. So we have identified, if we look at global megatrends, the verticals that impact all of these layers, and digitalization is definitely one of the driving verticals that has changed and will continue to change vocational education and training. And I think we just have a glimpse of it up until now, and we are really looking forward to what will and how we will build the future of vet excellence using digitalization as a tool to basically blend meaningful experiences for our learners of all ages and build capacity wherever they are. So thank you. I think this was my last slide, and not to exceed the time. If you share our passion, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to share some of our work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mary. Actually, I was typing myself that I will use some of your slides extensively, because I think they, especially the one with the pre, during, and post, it's like if, if it was a different sector. It's incredible the way. And I think it's also a matter of being bold and admitting that things are not always incremental, but sometimes we have really new ways of doing things. And actually, it's impressive. I have to say, for the three speakers, the way you talk about these things, think about being back 3 years from now. This would have looked like, to me at least, would have looked like really, futuristic. So really, congratulations for the great work to you and to the others. Let's see, we have some questions here before moving to the open debate. This is the comment on the blueprinting. Some congratulations for you. Okay, so I would like to repeat also to you before moving to the open discussion part, the question which was posed earlier. If you had to choose one thing which changed thinking about the way you design your training activities. So you have your educators, we know they are in different settings, they have different tools, but still they are the ones that have to design the learning experience. But also there, as you were saying, something has changed. Of course, it's changing, and it's not only about, I would say, instructional design, it's really about experience design, from what I understand from you. If you had to choose one thing that is really helping to change the way they think, the way they work, and therefore the learning process, what would you choose?
Well, basically looking at what we've done in Finland and the, let's say, journey to where we are now, I would say one of the big boosters in order to make this scalable and accessible to all learners is the teacher professional development. Because we really need to support the people who are out there every day with their learners. And we need to support them in terms of also finding those who are the brave firefighters who go at it the first time, because that's not easy. And a lot of times teachers want to play it safe. So playing it safe means that you repeat whatever you've done, you know, in years before. But now we changed the paradigm. And of course, COVID pushed us to change that paradigm. But we need to go further because the change is now even more rapid and we have more solutions than we have had ever before. So exactly how to, how to embrace all of that with enthusiasm, not feeling discouraged and not feeling like, you know, you just want to close the doors and windows and never open your computer again. I think that's the big challenge in vocational education and training. A lot of times companies can be more nimble, but those who are training providers in, you know, public schools, it's not all that easy to be an innovator and to be brave. And I think that's something that the network of excellence that ETF has been working with is really paramountly important, because that's what you are underlining, the innovation, the change, the need to embrace all that and to look at, you know, things with brave new glasses. So we need to underline that even more in the future, and also to policymakers, because without that, things won't change.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, thank you very much. So again, the spot on professional development, and since you discussed, you are hinting to the work of ENE, the ETF Network of Excellence. Now I'll give the floor to Filippo with a very difficult task to select a few questions that will help us to extract from the 3 cases that we heard about some lessons learned, or at least some paths for the rest of the world, who is sometimes let's say, living on islands of innovation, but hardly I heard about these very structural approaches to innovation. So I think that's a bit of the job of ENE and actually of vocational excellence in general, seen from the European Commission point of view, is really this idea of, let's say, facilitating bench learning, starting from excellence for everybody. So Filippo, the difficult task for you now.
Thank you very much, Fabio. I think that, first of all, I would like to thank the 3 speakers for the excellent presentations and contribution for the webinar. I've taken notice of a few points that I want to underline, and I would like anybody who wants to further contribute about these points that they can actually do in the chat or taking the floor. I think that in all cases, what you could see was a strong partnership with the private sector, which is very valuable for a number of reasons. First of all, in some areas, like the most advanced, the level of investment is quite big, so it's difficult for single providers to actually take the lead without having a strong backup from the government, also from the private sector. The example which I found most interesting and more important for us in terms of policy advice is the partnership with the private sector. It was in the case of Scania, to avoid unemployment. Because, I mean, big companies at a certain point, they need to have manpower who has digital skills relevant for their work. They cannot do it otherwise. Now, you can definitely just let them leave to unemployment, and that having the employment offices to do the work of actually retraining them and trying to re-put them in the labor market. But this idea of actually preventing training to avoid the people and adults lose a job for lack of digital skills, I think is very, very important. There's one participant who wants to speak. My second point that I wanted just to start with is a very, how to say, commercial one. Income generation is becoming more and more important for central excellence. In some countries, the government has to push for it because they don't have resources for education. They want to have central excellence with more resources, so it's really pushing central excellence to get some income from outside. For many central excellence, that's not easy because schools don't have entrepreneurial mentality. Now, what I was wondering, and I'm asking to the whole floor and to the speaker, is to what extent the possibility to develop and implement online training and blended training allow them to expand the numbers of people participating and also to make more money, and so to actually invest in other activities. I pass the floor to Mera, who wants to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you for allowing me to talk. And thank you for excellent presentations. I'm affiliated with ETF as Ambassador for Network Innovative Educators. There is a narrative in Jordan in that sector that the students really value the hands-on work. So my first question is to Mary, whether the metaverse or VR is the only way forward. I became a fan of VR in that myself due to friends in ETF and it's Silo. But on the ground, I mean, in vet colleges and even in some documents, they say that you cannot digitize some practical work fully. So the attractiveness of the sector to some learners is that there is less theory and much more practical work. So this first question, and second question also about the courses from the North. I've searched the website and there are some minimal length is like 1 year. We do have some experience in shorter term courses, and my question was positioning of the value of those courses, not going to the extent of micro credentials, but still, to my experience, it's the shorter, like 1 to 3 months courses sometimes are more attractive for the learners because of different reasons. So they're working, they don't have that much time and so on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I pass the floor to the two speakers who will receive the direct questions. Marvin, please.
Yes, just a quick comment on the VR and metaverse. It's astounding how many different type of skills and competences you can practice with virtual reality simulations. So for instance, we use it in the classroom with construction students to practice on construction safety in a different construction site environment. And you put on your VR glasses and there you are at a construction site. There are certain safety things that, let's say, are not as they are supposed to be there. And the idea is that the student is to spot them and correct and, take measures on how they should have arranged the construction site, for instance. So different things like processes, environments, etc. These can all be practiced very well with virtual reality. And this is, of course, a safe way because we have simulations, and in the real world, actually having things go wrong on a construction site can be very hazardous to your health, and we don't want to do that. So we have identified certain, let's say, learning objectives that work well in virtual reality. It's not for all and for everything, but for many different things, rather than reading on construction safety from a book, for instance, we really believe that this is much more engaging and you can run different simulations there. So just as an example, again, when you have the metaverse option, you have even more variety and let's say more different scenarios that you can play with multiple people there. But we definitely see that this pushes the boundaries of learning and is a safe and scalable way, also in situations like what's happening in Ukraine at the moment, where some of the learning environments just are not there and then people cannot access them safely. So basically, it is not the only answer, but it is a good answer and a good alternative in certain situations and to learn things. So basically, I would definitely, encourage anybody to look at it with open eyes and an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Erland, the second question was for you.
Yes, I saw it in the chat and I tried to write an answer there as well, but I was a bit uncertain what to answer. But I think I'll start with the yes. Shorter educational tracks are definitely in demand, and that is something students and learners ask for and want. So one answer to that is that we are breaking up the accredited tracks to make it possible to do single courses, still keep them accredited. And then we have our offering that is typically shorter and where we also try to create everything in modules so that you could do parts of it and be in control over how much you do and when you do it, and not necessarily have to do all in one sitting. And I also think there was something about accreditation, or how do you prove the skills. And what we have done, being unaccredited, obviously we can't issue ECTS or a diploma or anything like that from our training. But we have aligned a lot of our courses with industry certifications, and also established 4 certification centers at our 4 campuses in Norway. So that we give that as an offer as well. If you need further documentation of the skills you have obtained, you can do a certification after completing the course, and then get a verification of the level and kind of skills that is easy to document towards an employer or a training partner. But yes, that there is a need for shorter educational tracks seems like a given, because you need to update yourself more and more frequently, and you need to do it. Even people like me and you and all of us, we need to keep updating ourselves to stay relevant, and we can't necessarily set aside 1 year, 2 years to do that. We need shorter, more to the point, relevant and specific educational tracks to keep ourselves up to date.
Thank you very much, Alan. There's another question for Mevi. It focuses on digitalization of assessment. And the question also asks if you have a national assessment and testing for certification.
Yes, well, basically, Finnish vocational education and training is competence-based. So we have around 130 different qualifications and over 6,000 modules. And all of the modules have like national level competencies that are written very explicitly in terms of what the student must be able to do. Now, as a part of that assessment, we always have work-based learning, which is assessed, but we don't divide or separate theory and practice. So what we want to assess is the capacity to actually apply theory in practical situations. Now, all of that was not possible during COVID because there were not that many practical situations where you could be assessed. So basically, that's where our educators got creative, and that's why these metaverse and virtual reality environments are now being boosted, because that is very much a real world environment. It is pretty much like a simulation of what you will encounter, and it's easy and safe to arrange. So basically, it can be used as one tool as a part of the assessment. It's not the sole means of assessment, but it can definitely help out. And also what we have is compulsory recognition of prior learning, which is also something where VR can be used quite well, so that we can indeed, and it's not so dependent on language, actually test and showcase what a person has previously learned. This is let's say, very important when we're talking about adult learners and learners from different countries with very different educational backgrounds. So we don't really require that the theory and practice be learned at school, but we require that the person has the capacity to demonstrate the competence. And I think this is a great tool for just that.
Thank you very much. I think just another element that I want to, I found in our presentation, I think is very important, is the collection of the feedback from the customer, because you are providing education in a completely different way. Sometimes your customer might be more conservative than actually you might think. So making sure that they are at ease with the different ways of delivering education, I think it's very important. It was present in many presentations. I think there's the one target group who's specifically at risk, because to participate in digital online training, you require some basic digital skills. You might have a percentage of your adult population and unemployed adult population who does not have them. So for them, the massive transfer of adult training, continuing training into an online and blended approach might actually be something that they push them out and reduce their opportunities. That's why it's so important for the government, for the state to get into this and provide basic training on digital skills and competences for people so that they are able to get back into their continuing learning opportunities. I just wanted to know if Mervi or other speakers actually deliver the basic digital training for people, because I think that's a key element. Of course, it's not responsibility of the own institution, but maybe they have experiences in it.
If I can comment, as I shared, basically the required learning outcomes on digital competence in all of our vocational qualifications, yes, we foresee that that is a base layer that anybody in any profession will need. And basically, that's why the upskilling of the teachers started way back when, because if the teachers do not have the skills and the competence, how can they teach their students? So that's why, again, getting back to the teachers and trainers, it's really important to support them so that the learning outcomes they provide and the learning journey they share with their students actually takes place. We found that many teachers shy away from new digital tools and solutions, and you really have to encourage and you have to share success stories, even on a national level, for other people to start engaging. And again, that's where the ETF network of excellence is so important, because maybe in some countries, the digital is not the priority or hasn't been the priority. So the fact that the policymakers and the practitioners can benchmark what other countries are doing, that's really important.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mervi. Fabio, I don't know if you have some points you want to share.
No, actually, I'm listening to, let's say, with a lot of interest to this, and I'm noting that most of the things that I hear are not about technology. I don't know if I can say that. I mean, it seems that technology is there. You are able to use it, of course, and I was very much impressed by the way you, for example, you're using the metaverse and artificial intelligence already is not, I never heard, did not hear the word piloting, which is something I'm very happy about. So you're not piloting things, you are doing things, which is actually, I think, a very good approach. And what I heard a lot, and also in the chat, I don't know if the speakers are able to follow the chat, I think so, but there is a lot of discussions about Europass and about regulation and about how certification and accreditation should change beyond technology. So it's really like the feeling is that technology is giving a push for system innovation. And this is exactly where I think what we are talking about. So for me, the only thing, I have the feeling that we would need another webinar of this, where we're discussing this sort of, let's say, forward runner schools, but actually that are not so different from the others at the end of the day. So I have the feeling that, I don't know, I'm now improvising this and looking into Torun's reaction live, but I think maybe next spring or whatever, we should have another meeting like this. Let's say, maybe picking up also some schools from not the typical suspects countries, either Scandinavia or Germany, where things are, let's say, things might be normal, but the data, at least PISA and other indexes are very high. But we should, I think this is a very healthy discussion, at least for ENE, for our side. It's very good. So nothing more than this. I think Torun and now Filippo, you are entitled with some quick conclusions. The other positive point is that we touched 130 participants and we are still 111. So there is actually a lot of appetite for this sort of discussions, which are not actually easy. It's not. And another word which I did not hear, and I'm very happy, is the word recommendation. So it's not like do this, you should do this. It's really like reflections around things and around the different approaches. So thank you very much from my side to the speakers, and happy to see this working so well. Torun.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Fabio and Filippo. Yeah, this has been a really interesting webinar. I'm happy to continue to planning a second webinar following up on these themes. And just being mindful of the time, I just want to acknowledge and thank the speakers. Really, really interesting presentations from all of you, Robert, Alan, and Mervi. You have really proven to be lifelong learning agents in your practice. So thank you for giving those concrete examples and cases. And I think one main takeaway for me is really that you have all put digital first and pointing out how upskilling, reskilling, education and training can really be inclusive. But you have also reminded us of the different competences that is needed in order to make that engagement and the inclusivity and adaptivity to individual needs. So thank you very much for that. And over to you, Filippo, for the closing words.
Thank you very much. I don't have any specific closing. I wanted to thank specifically Torun for giving us the opportunity to put the two network in connection. One of the main added value, one of the main objective of ENE is actually giving the opportunity to the members to establish their own personal network, institutional networks, to create partnership, to apply for grants or for projects together. So I think that getting in partnership with such an important network like yours, it's a big thing for ENE. So I think this was one of the main objective of the webinar. I think we achieved it. The participants were also very, I think they're still writing on the chat. There's a lot of content, a lot of links and personal opinions about the topic in the chat. So I would like to thank again all the presenters, Torun, Fabio, Loretta, the organizers, the interpreters, and we will let you know, of course, all the participants through our channels and ICDE channels about any upcoming activity that we will implement together. So thank you very much from my side. It was really a pleasure, and I wish you a nice continuation of the day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. It was very great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Keep us informed. We'll be more than happy to participate as many times as possible, and we'll keep you informed on our work as well.